So I'm going to start now, if that's okay with everyone. Yes, Brian. Yes, everyone. Yeah, good, 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 good. I'm going to start now. What we want to do is, Brian is just such a special guest, such an incredible person. I know him and I think he's incredible, but like, let's listen to what the real experts say. Like Forbes has said he's one of the most creative and brilliant business minds of our time. Facebook CMO called him one of the greatest digital analysts of our time. And I know Brian is just one of the greatest people of our time, if you will. He's just such a giving person. He's been so incredible to work with and just talk with. We do have some weekend conversations where we really just talk about what's going on with life, the future of technology, and then what Brian's focused on. And Brian is consistently focused on giving back. And when I asked him to speak today, I asked him because I wanted to bring a different perspective to the music industry. I wanted to make sure that everyone out there across all industries understood that out of this crisis comes community. Out of this community can come incredible thoughts. And so Brian has been great, is going to grace us today with a talk basically on innovation in the novel economy. I'm going to throw some questions his way, but feel free to ask questions as well. We have people coming in from South Africa. Hello. And we'll go from there. Let me just give you a little bit more of Brian. For those of you in the music industry that don't know him, he is the global innovation evangelist at Salesforce. He is a world-renowned digital anthropologist and futurist. He's 8 times bestseller. And in fact, I think he has a couple books behind him, and I hope he talks about them, or I hope he brings them to the camera a little bit, because you should talk about X, because that's amazing. And you should talk about LifeScale, because LifeScale is amazing too. And I hope you guys take away so much from it. So Brian, welcome to AMP Music Summit. Thanks for joining us.
Oh man, anything for you. It's an absolute pleasure. It gives me an excuse to use this stuff. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you to everyone else who's joined us now and who's joining us post event. I'm looking forward to it.
So Brian, I know we want to talk about, the novel economy. I'm going to talk through that. I'm going to talk through some questions around music industry as well. And then I want to make sure we leave a little bit of time at the end to talk about LifeScale and your thoughts on what you've given back, because you're such a digital expert, but you're also trying to help people understand technology and what it does to us. But let's dig in with the first question, which is, you keynoted Minim in Cannes several years ago, and you talked about new ways for artists and labels to reimagine models in the streaming economy. How have things changed since then?
Yeah, I'm a guitarist and a songwriter, and started playing guitar when I was 7. And I feel a special kinship with the music industry, and I want to see it thrive, and I want to see artists thrive. And then when I presented there, it was a time where streaming was a massive threat, and not everyone saw it for its potential of what it's become today. And in many ways, labels have actually found a very interesting and promising way to help monetize and help grow in what could have been a very, let's just say, devastating outcome. Since then, though, what we saw was almost this renaissance of music, where we had pop music become more popular. We had festivals become a way of life. Music is the thing that brought us together. We had, as fast as the world was moving, I don't know that you could have a song of the summer as much as you could have a song of the day or the song of the week. We had things like Musical.ly morph into to TikTok, and bringing music into the spotlight that helps individuals express creativity in ways that weren't possible before. We have Travis Scott performing in Fortnite. We have incredible creativity, which I think should have and was part of the artistry of music. But now we're finding ways to be more expressive, more creative, more artistic, and more inclusive in a world that can be not as inclusive, especially with digital. And so we can get more specific, but the one thing that I've seen, pandemic aside, was that music was always this way to bring us together. And there were, in the world of social media and all of these incredible apps that we had or have access to, was also a real wonderful way to celebrate artistry that we might not have heard from popular radio stations or from popular culture, movies, etc. That we have access to listen and to new artists, to find new artists that we couldn't see before. And then lastly, we saw the rise of things like Patreon that come on to help artists create a lifestyle or at least fund their art direct to consumer, which I think is also very special. So if anything, it's been incredibly inventive, and I feel like once we start seeing a treatment, or at least practice better hygiene and social distancing, that the live experience will be back and even greater than it was before.
Yeah, and I think, that's really interesting. I think you touched on a lot of things too, which is in the last few years since you spoke, you've seen a lot of things get connected, and you've seen the ability for music fans around the world to discover artists that maybe they couldn't hear otherwise. And I think there's something special about that. And there's something special about the music and music industry. I mean, we know that music is the universal language and it connects us all. And I think there's something amazing about what has happened and what is happening and what your take on it is. I know you published a theory, you just recently published your theory on the novel economy. Can you explain the story behind the novel economy and what it would mean for the music industry as a whole?
Yeah, in fact, the music industry is a perfect experiment for this. The novel economy was an inspiration. After I joined Salesforce at the end of March, we were right in the throes of lockdown, and if you turn on the news, if you open Facebook, I mean, it can be a really dark and depressing experience. And I noticed that a lot of experts in the industry were talking about the new normal and really trying to reset perspectives and attitudes as their way of sharing news and maybe sparking ideas and innovation. But I really started to think, I was paying attention to how companies were talking to markets. I was paying attention to how companies and organizations and industries were responding to disruption. And as you know, Seth, I always take a human-centered approach. It's the digital anthropologist in me to a lot of this thinking. And I realized that, I was going to say, if I had to put myself in the place of someone on lockdown, but I'm in lockdowns. If I felt that I was already starting to change, that my heart was open, my mind was open. I was seeing things with my family that I hadn't been able to see or enjoy for a while. And I wanted to take an optimistic spin on everything that was happening today. Not spin, an optimistic lens to see the good that could come out of this. And that's what led to the novel economy. I wanted to give the new normal a name, and I wanted to give that new normal a sense of purpose. And where that sense of purpose started was I realized that being in lockdown for however long was going to be enough time to change our behaviors without thinking about it. That it was going to be enough to change us subconsciously, almost as second nature, not almost, as second nature. It was going to reset our values. It was going to reset our goals in life. I was going to reset our definitions of success and what we want to do coming out of this. And the novel economy became a human-centered way to realize that novel just means new and unusual. And as a result, we don't have a playbook to respond. We don't necessarily have a hierarchy that we can ascribe to lead us out of this. But what we do have is our own ideas, our own beliefs, our own capabilities to be creative and inventive, to invent the way forward, to create that playbook as we go. So when I originally published The Novel Economy, it was a series of stages. One was, okay, let's do what we need to do to stay alive, and then let's move into this being alive, right? And then after that, we move into a stage of thriving. And the thing that makes this unique is that we're not going back to normal. And I think that's a good thing, because normal and many aspects of normal were part of the problem. So if we have this opportunity to not only stay alive, but also thrive, then what would we do differently moving forward? Knowing people are changing as customers, as employees, as fans, as artists, what would we do differently to invent the world we've always wanted to see? And that's the premise of the novel economy. And one of the biggest moments for me that sort of celebrated that idea was Post Malone playing Nirvana covers to benefit Who, and that was everything. That shows what the power of music, but also the power of using music to create opportunities that weren't there before, to bring people together around music. For example, many of his fans maybe don't know who Nirvana was, or the artistry of Kurt Cobain. They do now, and I'll tell you, if he tours that, I want to be one of the first to see that live. Post, if you're listening to this, I want an invitation. But it was the celebration of humanity and possibility, and that's the novel economy.
Well, no, and I think that's amazing. And I think that's so relevant and so powerful for everyone. To your point, we're kind of forced into this behavior, but we could look at it as freedom and something great, or we can look at it as something prohibitive. And I think the ability for us to look at it from your lens, which is this optimistic lens, and to go, what can we do moving forward that's different? What are these creative ideas that we can do and that we can implement that haven't been done before? I know we have a lot of executives on this panel today that are coming on as guests. What should executives and people in the music industry start thinking about moving forward? If you're right and we're moving in this evolving economy for the next 2 to 3 years, and maybe that means no live shows, or not as many live shows, or less fans, or less revenue at live, what changes? What should we be thinking of?
There are many parts of the normal, last normal that I want to see come back. For example, live shows, live events. I was so excited to see Rage Against the Machine hit the stage at Coachella. I can't even tell you. So in those aspects, I want executives to not give up on those things. But in many ways, for example, the last 10 years I've been preaching, last 20 years I've been preaching that every company needs to become a technology company, especially the music industry. For those, especially at Interscope, I used to work with them, helping them think about what a label needs to be in a digital economy. We now need to think about being in the health business. Every company needs to be a health company, because we're going to have this live virus with us, for at least the next 18 months. 12 to 18 months, right? And let's just say a vaccine comes. Not everybody's going to get that vaccine. So we're still going to have a live virus out in the wild. And, hopefully it mutates into something that's not as threatening as it is today. But in the meantime, we have to think differently about how we open up our offices. For example, my employer, Salesforce, introduced this whole series of suites and tools called work.com that is essentially a blueprint for how do you reopen your business. But also you could take that idea and you could think about applying it to live events, right? So if you have say suddenly hiring a chief health officer, how do you reimagine what that live experience could be so that we don't lose it, so that we could still bring people together safely? But also we're fast tracking. There's certain technologies that have had their trajectories completely changed because of COVID-19. And I think some of those are going to be around spatial computing, augmented reality, virtual reality, that need new experiences dreamed up. And the music industry, labels especially, have the power to make some really inventive things happening. You have the power to go tell Facebook, we want to create a new type of experience, and make them do that, or YouTube, or anybody that has access to the next generation platforms that are slowly starting to take off. Think about partnering with Twitch, and not just Fortnite, but other platforms that could bring artists closer together with communities that don't have access today. I went to the Chainsmokers concert in San Francisco in November as part of as a guest of Verizon to experience this sort of 5G experience, and we held up our 5G phones. This is not one of them, so that we could experience this virtual show with the live show in real time, and it was cool. It wasn't life changing, but it was cool. And if I was an experienced architect, which I am, I would design that live and virtual experience to be so much more immersive, so much more incredible, and do things that you couldn't do with music before. I remember pitching the manager of Radiohead a few years ago, just randomly, to saying, you know, it had been in between albums, and I said, I gotta share this idea with you because I haven't seen a virtual reality album launched yet. And I think if anybody was to do that, it would be Radiohead. And here's the ideas that I have. And, you know, it's still up for anyone to take, but it's going to need the help of a platform to make that experience a mainstream, something that the mainstream wants. Because now as we're moving into the novel economy and new behaviors are forming, this is that time where we can change and inspire new behaviors that aren't just going back to normal, but are unlocking new types of opportunities that music it's the best thing to launch something new because you feel it, you hear it, you know, so might as well see it and immerse yourself as deep as you can into the whole thing.
Well, I think, I mean, to your point, it's limitless. It's really up to us to be creative. It's up to the music industry as a whole to be creative and really push ourselves. And I know design's important to you. I know experience design is crucial to you. In fact, I mean, that book behind you, incredible book, X, guys. And if you don't have it, just, you should get it. You should read it. You should read it several times because experience design for you has always been pivotal in what you've done. How do you see experience evolving in a novel economy? And I know you touched on it a little bit, but can you go a little more in depth on that?
Yeah. So the very nature, we kind of back up to this book, the idea of experience is, it's something that everybody's talking about. It's certainly a word that's synonymous with everything from music to Hollywood to travel to sports and entertainment. It's everything, right? And you hear about it, even everyday businesses talking about customer experience, and even employee experience is now becoming very important. The one thing that I had realized, though, is when we talk about experience, and it's still true today, we tend to think about experience as sort of this series of touch points. So, for example, a concert or an event, an album release or drop, streaming, purchase in some cases, and what that journey looks like throughout all of these things. And as a result, we tend to sort of build upon them iteratively. So we make them better, we make them more modern, we make them more mobile, we make them more live, which is all cool. We definitely need iteration, but what we don't do is really think about what is the power of an experience if we had to invent something new today. So you get this balance of iteration and then innovation, which is unlocking or creating new value. And usually, if you do it right, those two things can lead to disruption, which is doing new things that make the old things obsolete, right? This is the new standard. So I share that because one of the things that I realized I needed to do to get there was to define the word experience. And I didn't want to look at it in any lens that was being used in popular business today. Experience, if you think about it as an artist, or if you think about it as a UX or UI designer, you have to get to the heart of the matter of what somebody's feeling in those moments. And that's exactly what an experience is. It's an emotional reaction to any one moment, right? And that emotion tends to dictate what you do next, whether that's a purchase or whether that's, leaving or whether that's trying something new. And because they're attached to emotions, we sort of think about those, because they're touch points, we think about them as transactions and not necessarily as experiential outcomes. But if you shift that mindset to experiential outcomes, you realize they're quite powerful. They're quite transformative, actually. If you design for how somebody felt and how somebody reacted in those moments, which is essentially experience design or the foundation for it, you could then unlock a deeper relationship with somebody. And that's what's so inspiring, essentially. if you design something that's much more meaningful in that moment, right? An experience becomes a memory, and a memory becomes the brand. And that is good or bad. Anything in between that is not even worth experiencing. And so that's the power of experience design. As you think about it in any concept, whether it's your music or your work, or it's the fan's journey, even the artist's journey, and all of the new things that they have to learn and do in order to create and build communities. Or if you think of it as the, let's just say we're at a label, or if we're at an events company, or any aspect of the ecosystem, everything's an experience. And we can create and design new experiences to make music come to life in ways that have both emotional outcomes and, because a lot of this is a business, also business outcomes that are largely untapped.
No, that makes sense. I really like where you're going with that too. And I think everyone that's on this should be sure to read that. I want to jump to another book though too. I know we've talked novel economy. I know we don't have a lot of your time. We dove into the novel economy. We've dove into the importance of experience design. I want to go into Life Scale, which was, I believe, your last book.
Yeah.
And it was kind of you. Yeah. So Life Scale, guys, if you don't have that book too, I love that book because it was you really kind of opening up about your true experience with technology, the fight with technology, maybe taking the time to take a time out from technology. And I thought it was so incredible for you to open up because you're at the forefront of technology, experience design of technology. And I feel like that book now more than ever can be a great read for COVID life now and COVID life when we are allowed to go out. So you want to talk about that a bit for everyone here too?
Yeah, I'll go as much as you want to go into this subject, because it's been a literally life-changing experience. It's not a book that was on my roadmap. It's actually trying to write the follow-on to this one, which I'll eventually get to. But I've been on the forefront. I'm in Silicon Valley. I've worked with startups and tech companies and essentially all kinds of great innovations, going back to the 90s. And I have been a tech apologist of many. I'm a self-described geek. This stuff really excites me, and it's not just the technology. It's also the opportunity as an optimist to see great things. I wrote the social media manifesto, for example, in 2007. That talked about how social media was going to create a more unified world, that we were going to be more creative and collaborative together. And I wrote a paper for the Department of Defense that talked about how social and mobile was going to help us foster greater democracy. And of course, these things have played out in very interesting ways that we could get to later. But I want to share that with you because it was a passion. It wasn't just my work. But as I was trying to write the book that was going to follow that one, I found myself really struggling. It had been a few years in between books. I'd written many research papers between, but those are 20, 30 pages versus 300 pages. And so when I finally tried to get deep into this creative flow, tap in creativity in ways that were going to help me find and create new value, I just struggled. And initially I blamed things like writer's block and being too busy and multitasking. But really, as I started to think more about it, and this is, of course, I'll spare you the story of over a year, I started to realize that there were patterns in my life going back years that I could then, in hindsight, see that I was actually living a very distracted life. That maybe this sounds familiar. Maybe you're constantly waking up in the morning and scrolling so that you use that as a waking up ceremony, or that you do it at night, scrolling so that you think it helps you get ready for bed, or having 20,000 tabs open on your screen because you're going to get to all of these things eventually, or having 3,000 files on your desktop because you just haven't taken the time to organize or compartmentalize all those things. Or we over the years have been wired for distraction, not in an evil, sinister way, but it's just sort of been technology's way. Every app, every service, every game, they have they all have to compete for your attention. And to do that, they use what's called persuasive design techniques to help you get your attention their way. The like button was one of the early examples for that in terms of social. And notifications going back to email is an example of that around digital. You're pulled away. Every time you get a text, you sort of feel that need to check it. And so essentially what happens is your brain starts to speed up to try to keep up with all of those things. And it starts to rewire your brain to be able to fire at this level. And as a result, it's taking all of these chemicals to be able to keep all of those things going. And so you're essentially burning and running and creating the sense of anxiety of keeping up. And then add to that the emotional side of, say, what it means once you get a like, or once you get followers, or once you start seeing your friends living this great lifestyle. There's an emotional and psychological component to this persuasive design that I don't think anybody thought through. And that led to happiness and creativity issues and a whole bunch of things that we could talk about, self-esteem. And that also, all of these things were coming to a head. And, for me, it goes back to the early 2000s of living a lifestyle like this, an active lifestyle. But for most, it really started to happen when the iPhone came out, when Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and all of these things just sort of perpetuated. You had online games that added to that. You had Netflix that added to that. You had Reed Hastings, for example. And look, I laugh every time I say this, but last year at a shareholder meeting, he said, he was asked, who's your biggest competition? He said, sleep, and we're winning. And it was his point that, to get your attention and to hold your attention, we've got to do very creative things to change your behaviors in our favor. And that came at a cost. And that cost is being present. That cost is being able to be slow. That cost is mindfulness. That cost is creativity. That cost is also things that I didn't foresee, but I ended up connecting the dots through research. Our values shift in what's important to us, or what we think is important to us, our beliefs, our behaviors, our norms. And so essentially a lot of this stuff leads us in a path that's not in our full control. And one last thing I'll leave you with there is that the hard lesson that I learned from this, though, was that the book was a harder sell than I thought it would be. I ended up convincing the publisher that once I came up with the solution, which is life scale, it actually means know where you want to take your life and scale your way forward every single day intentionally. There's exercises here that help you get there. That I asked if I could turn that journey into a book. Because I felt like, well, of course everybody's going to feel this way. And it turns out that you're not distracted if you don't know what you're being taken away from, right? In my case, I was taken away from the ability to write my next book. So that was something that I could get my arms around. But every day, this is just normal. When you reach for your phone, when you scroll, when you share pictures of yourself, or you're following your friends' adventures around the world, that's normal. So you're not taking yourself, or at least you don't realize you're taking yourself away from something else. So it can't be a distraction then. So it turns out that the problem is actually deeper because we don't recognize that it's a problem. And so I have a lot of work to do around that moving forward. And COVID actually is an accelerant for all of this. And it's re-inspired and reignited all kinds of thinking around the solution all over again, because we're using mobile, we're using social, we're using gaming, we're using entertainment as a psychological escape away from all this craziness of being in lockdown, that it's a coping mechanism essentially. So it's sort of accelerating all of these other problems that we talked about without anyone in their life to say, hey, did you know this is what's happening behind the scenes? And what if we could do X, Y, and Z, and let's lead you on a different journey to move in a much more creative and productive path. I'm not saying get rid of technology. I'm just saying get on the other side of it so that you use it in a mindfully, purposefully, intentional way.
Well, I mean, I think to your point too, which I believe you make in the book as well, which is, you can control technology, or technology can control you. And I think it controls a lot of us. And as smart as we think we are, as much willpower as we believe we have, there are hundreds of thousands of some of the smartest people in the world whose main priority is getting you to be distracted and getting you to look at this post, look at that like, to get that endorphin rush, to get the dopamine, to get all those key things that you can't even control at that point. And I think it's played into the artist and fan relationship. And before I talk about the artist fan relationship, I want you guys to know we got over 90 people in here right now. If you have questions, please send them over. This is going to be the last question I ask Brian because I want to open this up to chat. And I want to make sure you guys are chatting away. Let me know your questions for him as well. And Brian, if possible, I'd love to do is maybe, I believe you had sent out a chapter of Life Scale before or something like that. Maybe I can send that to some of these attendees or send something on them because I think any of those things would help them.
Yeah, I do have a bunch of things that I owe you anyway. So
what I'll do is I'm going to get those to you guys. And I think one of the key things you should talk about though too, which ties to the experience and the design of the experience and to life scale, which all of it ties together. What are your thoughts on what could the possibility be for the artist and fan experience, and what do you foresee?
I think whether you're an artist, whether you're a label, or whether you're a brand looking to tap into the ecosystem, this is, forgive me if I get a little deep here. I haven't even had a glass of champagne yet, but essentially this is a somatic marker in everyone's life. It's an emotional bookmark with deep visceral roots that'll probably be with us for the rest of our life. But it's also a communal event that is bringing the world together, and music is healing. I watched all of these incredible artists do a rendition of Foo Fighters Times Like These, and it just moved me to tears. So the advice is that if there's no playbook moving forward, then write it and bring out that magic, because it doesn't have to take a global pandemic to bring that together, but it did. So here we are. So now what do we do about it moving forward? I think that we can make it, since life is about experiences, and experiences it connects to memories, and we want memories to sort of become that. We want to design those types of experiences and memories that are great for everyone moving forward, whether that's life or whether that's in full-on experience design. Then what is that experience? Because this is the time for invention, and we have access to amazing technology. We have access to AI. We have access to machine learning. We have access to what I call data-driven empathy, which is taking all of this new data that's starting to show how people are changing as of March 1st, to see what they love, see how their values are changing, see how their aspirations are changing. That's all a gift that we can look at now to inspire newness. That leads to different music products, different music experiences, different artist-fan relationships. I mean, before COVID, I saw the launch of, I think it was called Community, which was essentially a text messaging service that allowed artists to text directly with their community, sort of bypassing things like email or social media. And I thought initially, well, I can see that being used to sell stuff, but could it also be, imagine getting the text from Drake. How you feeling right now? Just thinking about you, like, man. So it sort of brings this opportunity to connect at a much more human level with today's technology at scale.
No, and I think that's so powerful. I know a lot of people are loving this talk. I want to take a couple questions, and I want to thank you for your time right now too, in case I don't thank you again. Laura Walker Lee was asking, what is your current media diet, and what are your go-to sources of inspiration and creativity?
I'm just going to tell you the truth. So hopefully there's value in here. I'm not going to make anything up. I have had to shut off a lot of media lately so that I can allow my brain to think and allow every part of me to feel of the things that inspire me and not react to everything that's happening around me. And so my media diet right now is only positive information. In fact, I've turned, if anyone who follows me or follows my work, you've probably seen a pretty stark shift in the things that I share. They've only been positive. They've only been constructive. Hopefully they've been motivating, because I want to be a brighter voice. I say that, in times of darkness, be the light. And so I'm trying to practice my own advice. I'm really deep in music. I have these headphones right here, so when I'm writing, I immerse myself in all kinds of different genres. Um, I I'm reading just a lot of stuff. Ryan Holiday's new book, which is awesome. Uh, I have a Ralph Steadman book that I've been reading through, telling the stories of Gonzo journalism and the illustrations for Hunter S. Thompson's work. I'm got some vinyl out there with jazz that I'm throwing myself into. I'm trying to just plug into more visceral experiences to inspire me in new ways. And so every day it's different. I'm always looking for different things. And right now, Seth, as you and I were talking about, a lot of my media consumption is YouTube videos teaching me how to do video, live video in this world. But for all the other inspiring parts, those are all still true.
Well, and you did an incredible job today. I know everyone is thankful. The feedback has been incredible. Guys, if you have any more questions, send them my way. Brian, for the almost the 100+ people here now on here, who haven't read LifeScale yet. I know all of them are going to go get LifeScale now, but what's one key takeaway they can take from today just to implement in their lives between today and the moment that LifeScale comes in their mailbox?
Yeah, I had to go through what I ended up calling attention hacks, because in order to be able to go through these deeper learnings or exercises that are in the book, I had to be able to focus to get through them. So these attention hacks, they're in the first part of the book so that you can learn them early. But one of them I want to share, because it's fun, is the Pomodoro, the Pomodoro method of working, which essentially says you could program, it's usually 25 minutes. You work in 25-minute bursts. You turn everything else off. You turn off your phone. You have your glass of water. You've gone to the bathroom. You sit in your chair for 25 minutes straight, and you focus at one task at hand, and you give yourself everything. You give all that you have to that one thing. And then when 25 minutes is up, you usually have about a 5-minute break. So whatever you want to do then. And then you go back to do 25 minutes. And the whole thing is it's supposed to create this rigor of just complete thoughtfulness to be in the moment. But the reason I wanted to share this one with you now as a quick takeaway is because I guarantee that the first time you try it, you're not even going to be able to get past a minute or 2 minutes. And that shows the extent of just how deeply rooted this is. I think when the first time I tried it, got about a minute and a half in, I reached for the phone. I didn't even have a notification. I just like muscle memory, just did it. But I practice that still today. There are people who build on that, who can go an hour and a half bursts. I don't. I got a million things going on that I still need to manage, but I shift strategically that way.
No, that's incredible. And I think that's key for everyone, which is, if we let ourselves focus on one thing, even for 25 minutes, the amount of creativity that can flow, the amount of ideas we can put out there are phenomenal. We would surprise ourselves, and especially it's all a muscle, and you create muscle memory the more reps you do. And I know the Pomodoro Technique is fantastic. One of the best copywriters in the world, Gene Schwartz, he was considered the top copywriter, period. He would do 33-minute bursts. And if he missed a minute for any reason, and this is in the 70s and 80s, there's no cell phones. But if he missed a minute, he'd start from scratch again, start at minute 0. And he would sit there, but his writings generated billions in dollars of revenue because like he said, he goes, we're all creative people. And I think that's what you're stating too, which is, look, technology should be a tool for us and it shouldn't control us. And there's moments where it's trying to control us and we need to push ourselves out of it. I know I want another question came up, Brian, if that's okay. Just want to
Yeah. Hey, real quick before
question.
we go to that question, I do want to address a part you said because I used creativity. I don't know if you could see that, but creativity is in the subtitle. I use creativity as the muse for life scaling or scaling life forward because it turns out that whether everybody's creative in their own way, right? And this tends to get people to say like, oh yeah, right? I'm never going to be John Mayer on guitar or with my voice, or I'm never going to be Beyonce with my voice or talent or dancing or what have you. The thing is that there's big C creativity and there's little C creativity. The acts of any kind of creativity, whether it's I'm right-handed, but if I could write my name with my left hand or write sentences, just doing that consistently, like you said, building muscle memory or singing in the shower for no audience at all, or living life as if no one is watching, those things rewire your brain and the chemicals that you share throughout in ways that actually spark different thinking, creativity. It's actually good and healthy for you. There's science that shows that any kind of creative expression actually helps you in life. And right now, just a couple things I just want to help inspire how you think differently about work. For example, we live in a time of AI and machine learning, and those conversations tend to lead to like, oh, automation, great, I'm going to lose my job to a robot. Well, actually, with any forms of expression of creativity, you start to think differently. You can get yourself to critical thinking. You can start to see new opportunities. But creativity is the thing that AI and machine learning cannot do. Someone's going to have to be in front of those things. Someone's going to have to be saying, this is the type of data we want. These types of insights we want. This type of automation we want. And taking that, becoming a ringleader. So creativity has never been more important, whether you're going to write the next hit song or you're going to just think differently about how you work. It's all the same. And then lastly, it's just healthy for you. There's a study that I include in the book that talks about how caregiving facilities for older guests, they instituted all types of creative programs, from dancing to music lessons to basically where you feel like you can't learn anything new, or why should you? They found that if you do start to do these things at any age, you actually reverse the aging process, which is incredible. And so it's literally the fountain of youth.
That's amazing. And no, and I know that the music industry lives off creativity. I'm excited for this. I have one more question. Um, and it's from Kayla Brown, who says, when you're working to build your remote team, what is the first piece of literature or training you'd recommend surrounding mindset? Would it be the Pomodoro Technique, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would look at the Pomodoro Technique. Yeah. So let me take a step back. When you work remote, you have to. I wonder, Seth, if I could send this article to you. One of the things that I had found post release of LifeScale, this is pre-pandemic, was I had found in subsequent research that distractions, or let's not call them distractions, let's just say these types of things were leading to the loss of at up to 2 hours of work per day. And a lot of that had to do with just because you're trained to deal with notifications, whether they're personal or professional, you're just pulled in a bunch of different directions. But the science of it shows that, let's say you were in deep thought for a moment and you got pulled away, whether it was a conversation or a notification, or you just wanted to check your social feed really quick. Some studies show, I think the one was out of the UC Irvine, and it takes 23 minutes to get back into the zone. And that's a long time. And if you add that up over time, every day, every week, every month, you could put a real hard cost to it. And the same is true for customers, right? The customers are distracted as well, but that's a whole other conversation. So for a remote team, you have to know that people were already distracted. They weren't working as optimally or as creatively or as productively as they could, because all of this is so new. We don't necessarily really understand the impact of it all. So you have to, as a manager or as a leader, you have to be empathetic in knowing that, give everyone the benefit of the doubt that they have the best intentions of being as productive as they can. But these are forces that are just sort of working against us. We didn't see it as that before, but it is a reality. So the Pomodoro technique is an application you want to give someone to hone the practice of focus. But before you get there, you might want to maybe have a special guest come and talk to your team, or introduce a series of works. You have Jason Fried, who's the founder of. Oh man, it's escaping me right now. I'm a customer of his.
37 Signals?
Yeah, 37 Signals. Thank you. Sorry, Jason. And then you have James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits. You have we could send a list of all of these different books that you could have people read. They could read Life Scale, but you just want to let people first know that the reason why they're going to do the Pomodoro technique is that these things are happening, and we want to instill better behaviors, or just more productive behaviors moving forward, so that there's some context to why we're doing these new things.
No, thank you so much, Brian. Guys, I'm sorry I can't take any more questions right now, but Oscar, saw your question here too. Kayla, everyone, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Brian, thank you. Honestly, I know a lot of people have already been posting how much they're being moved by your talks. They're already taking quotes from what you're saying because it's powerful. And I think a lot of people, this crisis brought on anxiety. This crisis brought on a lot of fear for people. And it takes people like yourself who come out and who go, look, the future is bright. We can get there. We can get there together. We just got to do it together. We got to stay focused. And what I want to do is make sure I'll work with you and to make sure I send out some information to everyone on Life Scale and some of those techniques that Brian shares, because I can tell you this, I read the book when it came out and was completely moved by it. I've changed a lot of my habits because of it. And thanks again, Brian, for everything.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for your friendship, Seth. And it's just been moving and inspiring in many ways. And thank you everyone for being here. I know you have a lot of places or things you could be doing or going. And I think at the end of the day, what moves me most about, is the possibility that you face, right? I want to hear about what you do differently. I'm at Brian Solis on pretty much any one of those channels that you use. And I want to hear about what you did and what you learned and how you changed the world, or how you made a dent in the universe, because that's what motivates me and keeps me going. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys, for everyone. Keep tuning in to more of Amp Music Summit. Thank you for your time.